Hey everybody, welcome into JacksonSun.com and another edition of the Scores Table as we kind of discuss local basketball, college basketball, and maybe our last one of the season. Still not sure yet kind of what we'll do to kind of cap the season, but Craig just got back from Martin where the Skyhawk women found out that they are not only going to get to play, I guess, one of the schools that's known for in men's basketball, one of the better known schools, but they're also getting their highest seed ever in this run that they've had in the last few years of making the tournament. Craig, just kind of what was everybody thinking after being named a 13 seed this year?
Well, it really told a lot, the reaction from the fans when the name came up, because they've known all 4 years being in the OVC tournament champion that they were going to be in the thing. It was just a matter of when. Mm-hmm. So there's no surprise element when the name comes up. But the thing is, it's interesting to see how the fans all react when they see that number and the opponent right away. And you could tell a couple of years ago, particularly when they played Tennessee, it was just kind of this, oh, of course they did. Whereas this year it's kind of like, whoa, there we go kind of thing. Seeing the 13, I mean, that was that's why I focused on in the story for a Tuesday morning. Is just it's a big deal for this year because, a 13-4 just seems like a lot better opportunity for UTM to be competitive. Mm-hmm. This doesn't have to be a 33-point blowout. They weren't going to beat Notre Dame last year. They just weren't.
Right.
And so you have a little bit more hope for this year. But it's also representative of what they've done for the last few years. This is a recognition by the NCAA committee, there's no doubt about it, that this program is not a pushover anymore. It is a better team than the last couple of years, but I think there's a recognition on the part of the league and or the part of the committee rather, and Kevin McMillan talks a little about this. This is not the average OVC team. He pointed out the OVC is a 16 seed type league,
right,
just based on where the way it stacks up nationally. But it's the committee in this case clearly recognized this is not really the typical OVC team. They're a lot better, mm-hmm, and I think to move them up 3 spots, is a pretty good indication of respect for UT Martin, and I think they were pretty excited about that.
Well, the way they get respect a little more each year, do you think if they make it next year without Heather Butler and Jasmine Newsom, they might get a 6 or 7 seed?
I mean, just making it without Heather or Jasmine, that's
a pretty good team.
That's looking way down the road at this point. They've never made it without Heather and Jasmine.
All right, we'll get to that later then.
Yeah.
Moving on to the NCCAA, mm-hmm, tournament. Union qualified for that. They won their Mid-East region of the NCCAA tournament, mm-hmm, over the weekend. You were there at that when they got their first win in 3 tries over the league, when was the last time we could say it took Union 3 tries to beat somebody?
Right.
But Union seems to be playing some pretty good ball going into that tournament.
Yeah, they had that little spurt there in, I guess, February where they weren't shooting real well. And when Union's not shooting well, they're not really playing all that well.
Right.
So that's the best thing they do. But, they've kind of fixed that, it seems, and they played good defense. I think that was one of the things that kind of stood out to them when you talking to them after the game. They played good defense, and they rebounded much better. And it's one of those things that I think Campbell knew was going to be big going into Saturday. They have a tendency to not rebound well sometimes. It's just not really a strength for them, but he could get them to focus on it as he did going into Saturday. They did better at it, kind of held their own instead of getting whipped like they did the first couple of times. And it was just another really good game that Union happened to come out on top, where as in the first 2 they were good games and Union just fell a little bit short. So Union is playing good ball. They're a 2 seed out of the 8 teams, and the league's that 1. So definitely a possibility they could meet in the championship game, and that would, I think, be, carry even further toward that rivalry that they're kind of rebuilding, I guess, now that they're both in the same conference.
Well, now, Lee and Union are former NAIA powers. The NAIA tournament's going on, and we still have a couple local teams that are going to that. Freed-Hardeman's going in as a number 1 seed. Bethel is going in as a number 7 seed. So, and you're getting ready to head up to Frankfurt for that one.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. As it always is. Frankfurt tournaments, always a fun one to be at. Freed-Hardeman's been a number 1 seed in the last 3 years now. Mm-hmm. So they've kind of made a habit of it. Obviously, 2 years ago was a disaster, them losing the first game. Last year, much better. They got to the Fab Four. I asked Dale Neal when I talked to him today, do you all have to win a national championship for this tournament to be a success? And he kind of laughed, and he said, well, I think if we were to get to the Final Four of the championship game, it'd be hard to say, well, this was just a waste of time. But he said, we're shooting for that championship. So I mean, that's just being honest. I mean, that's kind of what they expect, and he even mentioned they've gotten to the point now where they kind of expect to be one of the top teams, and there's a couple of things that go into that, just the way they've been able to recruit and the way he's been able to coach in the last few years, and the fact that some of these powers have dropped off. That's kind of, I think, opened the window a little bit farther for Freed-Hardeman to kind of assert itself and make some runs. I mean, they're going to be considered co-favorites this week with Vanguard California, so I'm looking forward to seeing. I'm sure they'll win Wednesday, but I'm looking forward to see how they play in those first couple of games, see if they look like a championship team. And then Bethel, on the other hand, they're in the same bracket actually as Freed.
Oh wow!
They're at number 7. So
they would play in the quarterfinals.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So they'd have to win a couple games, both of them, to get for that to happen. That was not lost on Chris Nelson when the bracket came out. I mean, I know he's wanted to beat Freed pretty badly, and they've had trouble doing it. But the first thing is for them to beat the Masters, which is a really good team. They play in the Golden State Conference, which, if you follow NAIA at all, or you remember from when it was at here in Jackson, like they always had a lot of good teams in that league.
I was going to say, I think the last year that they were in Jackson, I think that Masters was kind of the Cinderella team that made it to the Fab Four.
Mm-hmm. And you just had a lot of schools like Westmont, and from California and the West Coast area that have been really good. So I mean, Bethel have a test right away. I mean, it'd be considered an upset if they won that game. But one thing they definitely got going for them is athleticism. When you've got players like Taylor Foster and Portia Harris, you can cause some people some trouble. Kiki Drake's done a good job rebounding.
Sure.
So I think that Bethel will be competitive if they can get their mind right. They had a bad conference tournament, but sometimes this sort of thing can be considered an opportunity. You got to change the scenery, and this is where it really counts, obviously.
Sure. All right. Well, then on the men's side, Freed-Hardeman is going to Kansas City for the men's tournament.
They'll be playing Montana State Northern. The seeding works a little bit differently there. They're kind of considered the 10th overall seed. They don't seed them by region or
They
whatever.
just seed like 1 through 16.
Right. Yeah, the top half.
16 others in.
So they're one of the seeded teams or whatever. So I suppose that kind of makes them the favorite. And like we talked about before, the big strength for Freed-Hardeman, I think, is the depth. It's kind of the opposite of their women who don't have a lot of depth. The Freed guys can go really deep and play 10, 11 that really contribute well. So, Kyle Theismann's an All-American post player, and he's kind of the most known weapon. But, I mean, you've got, a point guard that's come along like Damian Wooten. Chandler Mack's a really good athlete. Reggie Gilmore, Isaiah Harris. I mean, there's just a lot of good players at several different positions. So Freed-Hardeman, as fast as they're able to play, can cause some teams some problems. And then Union's guys will be in the NCCAA as well. They're the 5 seed.
Is that in Indianapolis as well?
It's in Winona Lake, in
Winona Lake.
Indiana. So they'll be at the same side as the women. And Union men have had their ups and downs. I think a little bit better season overall this year than last year, which was pretty tough. I think they still are seeking that consistency, which is so tough. I mean, the Gulf South is a tough guys league.
Sure.
And they were obviously a little in over their heads last year, but I think they're coming along, and they've got some good players. I mean, I really like what Corian Pearson did this year when I got to see him, and Roy Bullock's a fun player to watch too. So as they kind of develop that post game, they can I guess come along as time goes along. But it'll be interesting seeing what they can do as well.
All right. Well, he's going to have a full week with 6 teams playing in tournaments this week. So he's going to Frankfurt. Follow him for constant updates from the NAIA. You'll probably have kind of your ear to the ground, listen to what's going on north of you in Indiana with the NCCAA tournament union. I'll probably be helping you out with that as well. UTM plays Sunday at what time? 2:30?
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock our time?
Yeah, 2 o'clock our time.
2 o'clock Central Time in North Carolina, Chapel Hill. I'm guessing that'll be on TV somewhere.
It'll be on ESPN. Yeah.
ESPN. So be sure to catch that. We'll have a local sidebar along with the AP game story in Monday's paper and online as well. So be sure to check back on JacksonSun.com and the Jackson Sun newspaper for just stay up to date on all these teams and literally almost all over the country playing ball. And thanks for trusting us at the Jackson Sun for your #1 source for local sports news in West Tennessee.